My name is Jim Perkins. I am the director at Quorum Group. We are a mergers and acquisitions company based out of Seattle and Zurich, Switzerland. I am an entrepreneur like you. I have had many companies and sold two of my game companies to larger companies in the game space. I've also invested in companies in the game space and bought a company in the game space. So I am like you, and I have about 25 years experience in the game industry doing all of that. What we're going to learn today is some of the do's and don'ts of selling your game company. I want to go through some of the processes and some of the warning signs that you may run into when you're thinking about selling your company, some of the processes that you should go through in terms of discipline and what you should do and what you should not do when selling your company. Right after this, we're going to have three buyers on the panel here, companies that have recently bought game companies in the space, and they're going to talk about their experiences and buying companies and what warning signs they look for and what positive aspects of the company they're looking for when buying a company. Just a little bit about Quorum. We actually represent only companies that want to sell to larger companies that want to buy. We are representing privately held companies like you that are interested in selling. We are based, as I said, in Seattle. We also have offices in Zurich and around the world. So the reason we do this is about 60% of all the deals that we do are cross-border. So when we're reaching out to buyers, we need to reach out to buyers that are overseas in different countries. And as you saw with Alina's presentation, if you were here, a lot of acquisitions are taking place with Asian buyers. So you need to access those people, and we have access to those people. The process that we go through, and this is part of what, in terms of lessons that you can adopt when you're going through the process, we go through an optimal outcome process. And we put a full team on to make sure that we're making a full team on to get to that optimal outcome. And there's a process that you need to go through to cover all the bases, from attracting all the buyers that are out there, simultaneously giving all the proper information to those buyers, entertaining bids, doing due diligence, and finally selling the company. We have a huge database of contacts within the buyer community, from the Googles and Tencents and Perfect Worlds and Ubisofts and all of that throughout the world, and we have contacts with all those people, and that's really important, and you'll see why in a minute. So what is the optimal outcome, and how do we get there? Well, there's really 8 stages to an optimal outcome. When you're thinking about selling your company, and when I was selling my companies, I actually thought about selling my companies the day I started started my companies. I was thinking about, from day one, how would I position my company to be attractive to potential buyers in the future? I didn't want to run one company for 25, 30 years. My plan was to build a value in the company and sell the company. So I was thinking from day one, how am I going to position myself to sell the company at the highest possible value? Most important thing to do is to prepare. There's materials that you need to keep in mind in preparing for the sale of your company. A short executive summary, financial information, and thinking about all the pins that you need to put in place as far as employment agreements, having available all the agreements you may have with publishers or distributors or overseas partners. All of that needs to be done ahead of time, because when you go to market, you want to have that available for buyers. Buyers want that information immediately. The next thing you need to do is research. Look into who are my potential buyers, and not just who am I already working with. They may be potential buyers, but the buyers may be out there that you may not even know. And you saw again from the research that we do that there's buyers like Yahoo and Google and Amazon that really weren't in the game space a few years ago, and now are the top buyers in the game space. And of course, the other key area is that Asian buyers 3 or 4 years ago were not active at all, and now they're extremely active. They're the top buyers in the marketplace. So you need to research and understand who those buyers are and how you would be attracted to those buyers out there. Contact Contacting the right people at the buyers is very, very important. You're not dealing with the research and development director. You're not dealing with the vice president of marketing. You're not even dealing with the vice president of product development or anything like that. You're dealing with the CEO, or at least the executive vice president of corporate development. This is a totally different deal. You're not doing a partnership or a joint venture. You're looking to sell the company, so you need to be dealing with the right people, and that's where contact comes into play. Discovery. Once you find the key buyers that are interested in buying your company, those buyers are going to want to know what you do, why you do it, why it's valuable to them in terms of buying the company. So that discovery period is very important. You need to be prepared to go through that process of doing a 20-minute presentation or a 20-minute introduction to the key executives at the buyer level. Have a PowerPoint ready, have a demo ready, make sure it works. All of that needs to be polished and crisp and ready to go. When buyers come to you and they want to buy you, think about buying you now. There's a sense of urgency. If you leave it and you wait and you say, please wait 2 weeks for my demo, they'll lose interest and they'll go to the other 300 or 400 deals that they're looking at and pick another one that they like. Very, very important. Next step in achieving an optimal outcome is negotiation. Very important to negotiate with multiple parties at the same time. It's not a serial process. It's a simultaneous process where you're day and night working with the buyers to get the best offer possible. Once you pick a buyer that is interested in you and they've written you a letter of intent, a detailed letter of intent, telling you how much they're buying you for, what the structure of that deal is it cash, is it stock, is it earn-out? All of that should be laid out in a letter of intent, sent over to you. You modify it, edit it, and then agree on a final letter of intent and sign that letter of intent. After you sign that letter of intent, you go into due diligence. Due diligence is a tough process. The more you prepare ahead of time, the better off you will be. And a lot of deals do fall apart in due diligence because what you portrayed in terms of value for your company needs to be proven out in the due diligence when you go through that process. So the more of the financials you have in place, all the agreements ready to go, putting all of that information into a data room and having it available immediately upon due diligence is very, very important and very valuable, because the sooner you get to a close of the deal, the better. And then finally, the closing of the deal is a relatively quick process. You've negotiated the final terms of a definitive agreement, and you go ahead and sign that definitive agreement. The money gets transferred into your bank account. Monday morning, you're sitting there. You've sold your company. Great experience. And then you go into integration, and you integrate. You got to figure out what's my role in the company, and what am I going to be doing? Who am I reporting to? Am my employees staying on? What's really key about integration is plan that ahead of time. Make sure you're discussing and agree to an integration plan while you're negotiating the deal. Are we going to stay in Singapore? Are we going to stay in New York? Do we have to move to Barcelona? What are the terms of that? Are my employees staying on, or are they being let go? Don't assume anything when you're going through that. Don't assume anything that is not written down is not going to happen. Even when it's written down, when I was selling one of my companies, even though it was written down that we were not relocating and none of my people were going to be let go, the buyer attempted to both relocate the company and let go of my people. But we had it in writing, and it worked out fine. All right, avoiding deal disasters. This is really important. These are things that you got to watch out for when you're going through the process. So you've done everything right. You've built a huge amount of value in your company. You found the right buyers. But what you want to do is, while you're going through this process, is make sure that you avoid these key factors. First of all is workload. There's a huge amount of workload, and about 2/3 of the documents and work that you have to provide while you're going through an acquisition require some sort of outside help, whether it be your M&A advisor, whether it be your accountant, whether it be your lawyer, all of that. So there's a huge amount of workload. What you want to make sure is that you're still running the company while the company is being sold. Because during the process of selling your company, if you lose track of even a month of sales or a quarter of sales, or your product interest falls off or revenues are falling off, the value of your company will decrease substantially and your buyer will probably walk away. So you want to continue to run the company while the company is being sold. So make sure you make the best use of the outside expertise that you can. 6 value destroyers. These are, oh, I'll just back it up here. Number 1, going to market too late. It's always important for you to watch the market. You saw in Alina's presentation that there's a huge amount of activity in the marketplace. And that means that buyers are out there with a lot of cash. They're interested in your company. They're interested in the leverage that they can use when buying your company to make their company stronger. There are times when there is very little M&A activity. But right now, for example, the activity is very high, and the valuations are very high as well, multiples and so on, as you saw in Alina's presentation. But don't go to market too late. Don't wait too long, because the market will stall. We've sold a company to Google in one case, and there were 7 competitors of this company that sold to Google. Google then, the day after they bought this company, offered all of the solutions that this company provided for free. What do you think the value of those 7 other companies was right after that transaction? 0. So you've got to keep your eye on the timing. Where on CEO and management, I talked about it. Make sure you're running your company. Make sure that the actual process does not wear you down so that it hinders the performance of your company. Business drop-off and lack of focus. Sometimes it's very tempting to say, well, I know my company better than anybody else, so I'm the one that's going to go out and sell it, and I'm going to contact all the buyers. Well, contacting 80 potential buyers worldwide is a very, very big job, and doing it simultaneously is almost impossible. So you want to make sure that you have as much help as possible in terms of getting that process done. Confidentiality, just making sure that you keep as much of the information that you have in proprietary, the secret sauce, in your company for as long as possible. There's such thing as delivering stages of content to potential buyers. You do not have to provide source code. You do not have to provide certain things, secrets to technology or secrets to monetization. Those things will come, but so keep that as private as possible. Also, as few people as possible in your company should know about a potential sale of the company. You don't want that. The rumors spreading in your company that you're selling your company can cause a huge amount of distraction. Theft of technology, it used to happen a lot more. It doesn't happen as much now. There's protections in place to make sure that it's there, but just be aware. I have seen buyers try to come in, pretend they're buying a company, and all they're interested in is taking the technology or replicating the technology or the game dynamics or the monetization method. Very important to protect yourself. Use good advisors to make sure that that doesn't happen. And the last is loss of staff or non-solicitation. You just want to make sure that you keep your best people. All right, top 10 deal killers. Number 1 deal killer, dealing with only one buyer. Who's running the show if you're only dealing with one buyer? The buyer is running the show. They're determining the price, they're determining the timing, all of that. It's really critical that you're dealing with multiple buyers at the same time. And using that process that I described gets you to a point where you should have multiple buyers at the table. A contact at the wrong level, I mentioned this before. You're dealing with the CEO of buying companies. You're not dealing with the vice president of product development. The vice president of product development at a buyer level probably doesn't want to buy your company because they see you as a threat to them and their jobs. So don't deal with the wrong level of person. Improper research of potential buyers. Make sure you're going after the right buyers. If you're going after the wrong buyers, they can kill 3-4 years of your time. No, I've seen it happen. You're going down the wrong road. Misalignment. Make sure your shareholders and your anybody that's involved in the decision making of actually selling your company is on board. Your investors are on board with selling your company. You don't want a situation where you've got a great offer on the table and the guy that owns 2% of your company decides that they don't want their shares being sold. That's a real problem. That turns off buyers, and you'll run into a situation where it could kill the deal. Misunderstanding the buyer process and the models. Do as much due diligence on the buyer as they would do on you. Find out about why they see value in your company. Find out about what you're going to be, how you're going to be integrated into the company, and just understand that process. Ask a lot of questions of the CEO of the buying company. Inability to portray value. It's very important to at least have in your mind a reasonable value for your company. Don't disclose the value that you feel your company is worth to any buyer, but have in your mind, okay, my company is worth between $50 and $75 million. A reasonable valuation, something there. And if you've got buyers coming in at 60, 70, you know that that's a reasonable offer. If you've got buyers coming in at 25 million, you know that's not reasonable. Don't waste your time. Improper due diligence preparation, I mentioned this before. Just make sure you plan ahead and have all that due diligence ready to go when the buyer wants to see it. Not qualifying the buyers properly. You don't want buyers wasting your time. Ask them a lot of questions. This relates going back to doing due diligence on the buyers themselves. Simultaneously orchestrating all the buyers at the same time. Very, very important. You want everybody who is potential buyer of your company on the same page at the same time so that they can make a proper offer for the company. And finally, one of the top deal killers is ego, greed, and arrogance. We've seen deals where if the company's been offered $50 million, it's a fair price for the company. The CEO of the owner or the investor says, you know, if it's worth $50 million, I bet you they'll pay $100 million for the company. So let's go for that. That doesn't work. They're not willing to pay $100 million for your company. They're willing to pay a fair price. There may be some room to go to $55 or $60 million or put some sort of clause in there, earn-out clause or stock provision for 10% of the value of your company, but you can't let ego get away from you. Okay, some closing thoughts. I've got a couple more minutes and then we'll take some questions. Just a question for the audience. What percentage of self-managed M&A transactions fail? Meaning, if you try to do this yourself, what's the percentage of rate of failure? What do you think it is? 80, you nailed it. It's 80%. A very high rate of failure because there's just too much work and you just can't deal with all those buyers at the same time. And do you know all the buyers in Eastern Europe? Do you know all the buyers in Asia and China and Japan that could potentially be buying you? No, you don't. Really, honestly, you don't. So that process can fail. Leverage. Use your intermediaries to leverage your position. The key point here is what it says when you've got a professional working with you to sell your company. It says to the buyer that you're serious about selling the company. You're just not fishing. You're not fishing for buyers. I'm going to go, and if somebody offers me $50 million, I might take it, but I might not. Buyers don't take you seriously. When you go through a serious professional process, they take you very seriously. They know there's a limited time, and they know that they may not be the only bidder for the company, which is very important. That's leverage. That's bidding up the price. We'll get to that in 1 second. And a lot of the cases, and I've seen this right now in many of the deals that we're doing right now, is that the buyers out there are worried that there's other buyers out there that want to buy your company, and they're extremely worried if they got your company and he didn't, so, or she didn't. So it's very important to use that leverage. And fear is a big driving factor in buyers. You know, Amazon is very worried about Yahoo or Microsoft getting your company. So Amazon may pay more for your company as a result. Finally, what is the average improvement in price paid from first offer to letter of intent with a professional process, with a process that you go through and you're going after all buyers? Well, it goes up about 48%. Price of your company goes up 48%. So if you're dealing with an initial offer of $50 million, 48% is a lot of money, a lot of extra money. And that is a result of the bidding process that goes on when you go through a proper process. All right, that's all. Now, remember, we've got buyers up here in about 10 minutes. I would encourage you to stay for that. Do we have any questions?
What are the difficulties of selling a joint venture, like a gaming company?
depends on the joint venture. So what do you mean? Give me an example of what that joint venture might look like.
Say a gaming company that makes the games, and
Yeah.
the second partner in the joint venture is the people who market the game.
So you've got a studio and a publisher, and is it an exclusive relationship? Yeah, those are relationships that probably should be avoided if it's an exclusive relationship, because you've got reliance on one partner, and they've got certain reliances that may limit the number of buyers. So automatically, you may have eliminated all of the buyers in the publishing market because they already see that you already have a relationship with a buyer. Similar things happen when you assign exclusive relationships with territories. You don't want to, although in many cases you may want to sign these for business reasons, but if they're big deals and they make up 80% of your business, it can limit the value of your company and the number of buyers out there. Good question.